Hey, in our world of retail, the importance of relationships cannot be overstated. Building strong connections with vendors, suppliers, and representatives is often considered essential for success. However, too often businesses make the mistake of basing their buying decisions solely on these relationships, sometimes to their detriment. On this week's Retail Revelation, I'm going to share why it's crucial to stop making bad buying decisions solely based on vendor or representative relationships and look at a more rational and strategic approach to procurement.
Welcome to Season 6 of the Wealthy Retailer Podcast. This 12-episode season is chock full of experiential guidance garnered from a 30-year career in retail. Our host Dan Holman shares his experience, tried and failed tactics, success tips, and his raw opinions on becoming wealthy in retail. Listen in as he shares openly about overcoming the challenges you face as a retail leader in today's marketplace. Whether you are a long-time listener or if this is your first time listening, thank you. Please be sure to subscribe and rate on your favorite podcast platform, and hey, why not share with someone you know? And now here's Dan.
Hey, welcome back to this week's Retail Revelation. I am your host, Dan Holman. I think that goes without saying by now. And so this week we're kind of piggybacking off of the reset that we talked about last week for your next year. You're resetting your vision and your goals for the next 12 months. And one of the critical areas in every business, but one of the critical areas for retailers is really looking at their procurement process. And while the lead into the podcast talked about just being based on, buying decisions based on vendor relationships, we can take it a little bit deeper. But before we do, we really need to understand, why do I believe that making smart buying decisions beyond your vendor relationships is going to create a healthier business? And before we talk about some strategic shifts that you may need to make, let's just talk about the pitfalls of relying solely on those vendor relationships that you have today. The first one is, of course, overbuying. One of the most common pitfalls of leaning heavily on a vendor relationship is the potential for overbuying. Businesses or retailers may choose to order heavier quantities than they have the ability to sell because they have a close relationship with a particular vendor, believing that this relationship will bring better performance. However, this can lead to overspending and negatively impact your sales and your bottom line. One of the other pitfalls for me is missed opportunities, and relying solely on established relationships can blind a business to better options in the market. Innovation, cost savings, and improved quality might be available from other vendors, but retailers that are fixated on their current relationships can miss out on these opportunities. One of the other pitfalls for me is limited negotiation power. A strong vendor relationship can sometimes reduce your ability to negotiate. When a business is overly loyal to a vendor, it may feel less inclined to seek out competitive alternatives or to negotiate for better terms, thinking that the existing relationship will suffice. It's not the case. You've got to have the ability to negotiate. One of the other pitfalls is, of course, vendor dependency, and an over-reliance on a single vendor or select few will lead to vendor dependency. If something goes wrong with that particular vendor, or they change their terms, their seasonal presentation, your business may find itself in a very vulnerable position without a backup plan or alternative. Okay, let's get away from the negative and start to talk about, what's a more strategic approach to buying. Let's talk about objective evaluation. To avoid the pitfalls of relationship-based buying decisions, retailers should start with an objective evaluation of their needs. This involves defining the specific requirements of each category and what factors are most important: quality, price point, vendor reliability, and so on. The other things that allow us to take a more strategic approach is truly market research. And after we've identified our specific categorical needs, we need to conduct the market research that explores the full range of available options. This, of course, includes requesting samples from multiple vendors or suppliers, hitting up different trade shows, and consulting online and community reviews or expert opinions about those target or potential target vendors. Competitive bidding. Let's think about a little bit of competitive bidding. Think about implementing a competitive a competitive bidding process for significant purchases. This approach encourages vendors to provide their best offer, ensuring your business gets the most competitive pricing and terms to allow better cash management. The other thing that we need to be more strategic about is certainly our vendor performance metrics. Even after selecting a vendor, it's essential to continually assess their performance based on the agreed upon metrics with them. This ensures the vendor continues to meet your business's evolving needs and maintains the standards you both expect. Start by focusing on these two metrics: cash margin and seasonal sell-through. Cash margin are the dollars as calculated by taking sales minus what you spend on your entire inventory for that vendor, on all of the inventory, not just what you've already sold, but rather what you've purchased. So we take our net sales minus the cost of inventory, and that gives us our cash margin. And cash margin is what you use to operate your business. It is the single most important metric when starting to grade your vendor. What cash margin do they drive back into the business? And then when we're looking at our seasonal sell-through, you can look at it one of two ways: either item over item or dollar over dollar. What was my opening inventory plus everything I purchased, and what have I sold? That's your seasonal sell-through. The last sort of strategic tactic, if you will, is diversification. And one of the ways we avoid vendor dependency is to diversify the vendor base. And having multiple vendors or suppliers for critical goods and categories creates a safety net in case one vendor faces some difficult challenges. They increase their prices, or that they have poor categorical representation in any given season. Having a diversified vendor base means that you're creating yourself a safety net. Now, while vendor relationships are extremely valuable and play this crucial role in your business, they should not be the sole basis for your buying decisions. By adopting a more strategic and objective approach to buying, you will make well-informed choices that align with your customers' specific needs and your long-term goals. Remember, the best buying decisions come from a combination of sound research, competitive analysis, and strong relationships. Rather than relying solely on the latter, in doing so, you can steer your business toward informed, efficient, and cash profitable buying practices. Until next week, happy retailing.
The Wealthy Retailer Podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions, empowering retailers since 1991 with comprehensive point-of-sale software, point-of-sale and IT support and training, retail and executive coaching, along with advanced inventory management solutions. At our core, we believe in real and relevant relationships, solution-based sales and service, maintaining a client-centered bottom-line focus, and providing credible and complete care. Learn more at www.canadianretailsolutions.com.